Have you ever felt like your life was stuck on autopilot? Like you're just doing the same thing over and over again? It's easy to get complacent, confined to our own personal silos, unengaged with the wider world around us. And sometimes I feel like I've had tunnel vision in my life. Like I'm not really branching out to see what other possibilities lie ahead. I'm only thinking about what's right in front of me. And as a result, I find myself just going through the motions of life. Maybe I'm stressed, maybe I'm worried about something, or maybe I'm just complacent and I don't care. Whatever the reason is, today's episode is going to really help us to break free from the monotony of autopilot. And we're going to do this through hearing Jason's story and how it ties in with WALL-E, agency, and how a little dose of curiosity goes a long way. Welcome to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, where we learn how to navigate life one film at a time. We are four friends with backgrounds in storytelling, filmmaking, teaching, and narrative therapy. Join us on our quest towards telling and living our stories more meaningfully. I'm Derek Hatch.
My name is Nick Natal.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph Wilson.
I'm Jason Lynn.
My last riddle, or actually I have two riddles for this podcast. So, where's Riddler? Speaking of Riddler, what do these have in common? The Batman, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The Boy and the Heron, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, No Country for Old Men, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Ratatouille, Secondhand Lion, Shrek, and of course, WALL-E. These are movies that make me think of you, Jason.
I like these movies.
You do. And it's interesting because when I was looking at these movies, I'm like, oh, I see a connection between them. And
yeah, pick his brain.
I don't
pick his brain.
They're funny.
Well, I'll tell you what I see. The interesting thing
No
about
Country
all
for
of
Old
them
Men is funny in a way.
is in stories we have two types of protagonists. We have passive protagonists and active protagonists. Passive protagonists, and this is true of real life as well, passive protagonists just let life happen to you. Like, in other words, the characters just react to whatever the story, whatever the plot is doing. Active characters are those who see what's happening and they go forth to try to do something about it. So it's interesting with a lot of these movies on here. They're characters that are kind of like when we first are introduced to them, they're just kind of stuck somewhere, like Shrek in the swamp, or like in Tombstone with Kurt Russell's character not wanting to get involved. Or Ratatouille's family just wanting to kind of keep doing the normal thing. Or the guy in Invasion of the Body Snatchers just, trying to write everybody off and not care. In a lot of these movies that I see, Boy and the Heron is just the birds. Like, let's just be real. It's just a movie full of birds. It makes me think of Jason. But a lot of these movies really are about these characters who are stuck on autopilot at some point, and something has to break them out of it. Mm-hmm. And I think WALL-E is one of the best demonstrations of that, because literally, as you said in the last episode, the antagonist of WALL-E is autopilot, and that's what everybody has to break out of. And so, Jason, honestly, I'm just going to let you talk. And
oh no,
I know I see you've got a lot of notes there. And you got a story, and so we're just all going to kick back and we'll chime in. But Jason, you take it away.
We're gonna go ahead and get some snacks real quick.
We are going to be the passive podcast.
We'll be the autopilot.
Yeah. We'll be on autopilot. We'll be the host. Break us out. Exactly.
Yeah. So the thing that I really like the most about this movie is the theme of curiosity and wonder, and how that breaks us out of autopilot. And that's really taking our heads from looking just what's right in front of us and what we're doing and what we're good at, and looking at the world around us and going, as WALL-E often says, whoa. But there's a few things that I kind of want to highlight that we're going to talk about. And that is going to be one, directive. So directive and autopilot are not the same thing. So directive we see is not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing in this movie. Yeah. WALL-E's directive is to clean up trash, and he does it good. Take it, store it. That has a use. The people it's useful for have all died, but it's also his skill. He's good at doing it. He uses his ability to store the plant to help them in the movie.
Mhm.
Eve's directive is to find life. That's not a bad directive at all. And all these directives together are part of who these people and who these robots are. And these are good things. And it's when you get stuck on the directive and never move out of it, and you're fixated only on that and don't look up or around, that is autopilot. That's just doing, and autopilot is the path of least resistance. What's easiest? Just survival.
Yeah.
And survival is a bleak life. And it's funny because the people on the Axiom, if you look at the captain's reigns, they've lived for 200 years. Like, they've lived a long time.
Oh.
They actually live longer in space like that.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. I never thought of that.
Like, I was looking at the numbers. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way. 240 years. And it gets a little shorter
After
each time.
Yeah.
And if you'll notice, as each captain gets fatter in the picture, Otto becomes further and further into the picture, and to the point where he's like right there.
Yeah.
And as
he's prominent.
the captain's looking at it, Otto just pulls up and he's right behind him, like in the picture. And that's when he goes, no. And he puts his hat on and he stands up to him and then immediately gets shoved back.
Honestly, I think if like this captain didn't do anything, Autopilot just would have been the captain of the ship, because there would be no.
He's slowly phasing out the
Yeah.
captain.
Yeah.
But it's the captain's curiosity about like define Earth, define dancing.
Mhm.
That's what pulls him out of autopilot, right? Because that's when he begins to see like, oh my gosh, there's so much more out there. But he's also seeing that he's being phased out. Like humanity is being phased out. And I love that image you described there, Jason, of Otto becoming more and more prominent. And this movie borrows a lot from 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Like,
how.
Yeah, that is how, right?
Yeah.
And this movie, like, I feel like 2001 Space Odyssey, like, helps decipher WALL-E a bit more and what it means. Because that film is this cold, bleak, in some ways maybe demonic, right? Film, you know, that's really beautiful and well made and well crafted, but it's so hollow because it is like we start with the journey of humanity right in the beginning of the movie with them evolving from these like ape creatures into, you know, what humanity is now. But it's these tools that become that which advance humanity, but also lead to its downfall. And once we get to the humans in space with characters that I don't give a crap about because they're just so bland and boring and uninteresting, and there's no life happening in space, right?
Yeah.
And you realize that this calm presence of Hal, they've all become monotonous. They've all become like under this thing. Again, like they've outsourced their humanity to something else and allowed it to have control. Going back to like the God complex thing.
Yeah.
And their only curiosity they have is how can we just continue to advance? How can we continue to do technology, right? And now with WALL-E, we're seeing like this other like dystopian version of that. But it's a different kind of coldness than 2001. It's a coldness in the sense of everything is bright and looks good. Like they have all their needs provided for. It looks like everything's okay.
It looks like it is a utopia.
Yeah. So it's interesting
Essentially,
because
it is.
those two films together, I think it's fascinating the way they speak to each other. Even the music, a lot of the same music
I know that.
and homages to scenes like, yeah.
I need to see that movie then. All right, so let's set it out.
But quickly, there's a really subtle difference between WALL-E and 2001 because Hal starts to have his own initiative. He
Yes.
starts off as autopilot and then he takes over.
Yes.
Autopilot doesn't have a mind of its own. Autopilot is just following orders.
Mhm.
And there's a difference between, so in WALL-E, it seems like the antagonist is the system, the structure of the space axiom.
Right. Yeah.
It's a societal issue rather than Ultron, where these are all internal, individualistic battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're all starting to clash, but WALL-E's different.
It is the
WALL-E,
system.
yeah. So when you're
break
in
the
when
system.
you're yes.
Yeah.
So what WALL-E says, WALL-E does not denounce the individual
No.
in the movie. It denounces that system of
Right.
autopilot, and that individual has the courage and the curiosity to break out of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's a much broader scope than 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like, because Mary and John, they're not mad at all from getting knocked out of anything. They're polite. They introduce themselves. They're
Yeah.
kind. Like, the people in this movie are not mean or there's no ill. They're literally from birth. They're indoctrinated
Yeah.
into this system of,
It's all they know.
disconnection and just following what's right in front of them. And Otto was put in place by humans.
Yeah.
He received his directive from a person, from the president of By and Large.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what locked them in.
He's
And now-
the real villain.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like Nazis in a way, just that mindset. I'm not gonna lie.
Concentration camps.
Yeah.
That's what causes just this dystopian disguise as a utopian in the movie. And the things that I want to focus on now are wonder and curiosity. And this is
Yeah.
how I've defined them without going on Google. So if Google has a different answer, that's By and Large anyway.
Google
so I
is the
don't
system
care.
anyway. Exactly.
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
is the system.
So for curiosity is questioning the world around you and finding interesting in things outside yourself.
Mm.
And I have wonder as an appreciation of the world around you and excitement over beautiful or interesting things. And these things feed each other. There's wonder,
Yeah.
oh, what is that? And then, or curiosity is like, oh, what is that? And like, oh man, I can celebrate this. This is cool. And of course, as we talked in the last episode, it feeds into community, and this brings the spark of that. And I'll talk about myself and how that worked with me.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I think of this now. It was in a very similar way to in the movie, is that this sense of wonder and curiosity was already in me as a child,
Mm.
but it became more and more strong in my life as a survival mechanism. So I grew up, I loved animals, still do. I had so many books about fish and reptiles and all that stuff. And I'd be like, Mom, look at this. Look at this frog. This is crazy. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, very nice. And I grew up running around, climbing trees, just doing whatever that was outside and just whatever was cool, interesting things to me. Video games too had a big grip on me. But I also grew up pretty lonely at times. I was a weird kid. I was very in depth to all these things I thought were interesting, but my family, we didn't do a whole lot of stuff that I could relate with the other kids about. We didn't watch sports. We didn't watch a whole bunch of different movies. We didn't go out to eat that much. My dad just cooked at home, and these were all good things, but I did not know how to connect with other people in the outside world. And my parents, and I'm not blaming them, not bashing them, but they didn't go out and hang out they didn't have a whole bunch of people over all the time. Then we didn't hang out all the time at other people's places. We did sometimes. It definitely wasn't devoid of that, but it was just a lot for me to be able to hang out with other kids. And I almost had to teach myself by observing and watching other people and just saying random stuff and seeing how people reacted. And I almost had to like scientifically teach myself how to connect with the outside world.
Wow.
It was still weird. And it felt like I was always wanting to understand my friends and learn about them and be curious. And that drove me to be a good friend. And there were times where I felt like I was able to understand people, but I was not able to be understood, or it was harder for other people to understand me.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of loneliness and just sadness that I grew up with, but the distraction and just maybe not so much distraction, but curiosity and wonder in the world around me.
Yeah.
Like it helped me understand things that were beautiful and good in the world and take my eyes away from what was not good. And it brought me joy. And one thing that I learned, and I always talk about this, is throwing socks at the fan. Sometimes things are hard. And there's one moment when I was in my bedroom and the fan was going and I just like had socks laying around on my bed. I'm like, I just took them on my finger and flung them at the fan, and they would just carry them and shoot them around the room. And I would just start laughing. It was fun. And I just thought, maybe I need to lower my threshold for what makes me happy. And I talk about happiness as separate from joy. Happiness is temporary. And just when I had a lower threshold for what I can find joy or find beauty or happiness in, or just appreciate, it was not so hard for me to break away from problems in life. And it was easier for me to not get just dragged down from having to move the trash in my life. Like sometimes you have to pick up things and order them and understand them and find the beauty that's in that trash or in the hard things. And that's what helped me like keep alive.
Yeah.
That's what helped me survive and live past just survival.
Yeah.
And it was a good thing. Now, when that curiosity and wonder overtakes your directive and you're just aimless, that's not good either. And that was my weakness, is I would try to distract myself and not actually do what I needed to do. And which is my directive, the thing that I'm good at, the thing that God made me good at, the thing that I'm meant to do. Curiosity and wonder are meant to exist in balance with directive, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like one cannot overtake the other. Your directive can't be your whole life. You have to look outside of that, other people, other ideas, other concepts, you know, the arts, music, these things help us. But if we only think about that, we don't get really anything done, and we just kind of space out, and we never leave that dreamland in your movie Soul.
Yeah.
You know. And a cool example of this is Wally and Eve together, their relationship.
Yeah.
So Wally he does his job, he does it well, but he also is like very distracted easily about these things that he's curious about. And Eve is very mission minded. She's very focused on her directive and her task, and she gets agitated very quickly when she keeps failing, because she's only focused on the directive. She sees the roach, all right, cool. She sees Wally, fine, whatever. And then she just gets mad and starts blasting stuff, and she gets stuck to the magnet, and she shoots that and blasts all the boats.
Yeah.
And it's just all blowing up and it's exploding. And Wally is just kind of like trying to make the move. And she turns, and she's not like turned away by him. She actually like wants humor. She wants fun.
Yeah.
She wants connection.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Wally, she asks him his directive, and he goes, oh, and he gathers up all the trash and makes a cube, and she goes, I thought that part was so funny. It's like, dang, he's doing well. He's doing good. Let's go, my boy.
He's got Riz.
Yeah. My boy got that trash robot Riz.
Well, there's an image.
Say Riz. I don't like you right now.
There's an image that
say that word.
really stood out when you were sharing, was this idea of taking the trash and you're kind of ordering it into something. Like Wally orders it into this like little cube thing so it can have a place, right? And you kind of said you were doing that in your life, but you were trying to find the treasure, like the treasures in the midst of it. And that curiosity and wonder is what kept you. It's what kept you going in a lot of these situations, right? So if I can ask you a follow-up question then for your story here. So when it comes to this idea of autopilot, what does that pull, that temptation, like how does that come about, manifest in your life?
When I'm tired, when it's easier to not think so much about what I'm doing, or when things are hard, it's easier to just kind of keep my head down and do whatever and not connect.
Yeah.
And I just stop looking at what's around me, or what's worth looking at, what's worth being interested in. Or I only really focus on my own stuff because it's easier, and it's almost a survival thing.
Yeah.
And but then like without that curiosity, I'm not learning anything. Like Wally learns how to put himself back together. He's actually pretty intelligent, and that's because a curiosity and wanting to question everything and understand more about the world about him has taught him these things.
Yeah.
And when I get into autopilot, I start to forsake what I've already learned.
Yeah.
That's good.
Hopefully my curiosity in my life has spread to some people and helped, because what I like is that's what gets the captain to break away from his autopilot.
Yeah.
Because he's this close to just not even caring until the word Earth comes up. He goes, Earth. And he's like, define Earth. And he goes on the internet rabbit hole of looking up everything late at night. And but once he's hooked, he can't go back to nothing. I know Derek and I talked about this, but he goes, I can't do nothing. That's all I've ever done. That's all anyone on this blasted ship has done for 700 years is nothing.
Yeah.
And I think Otto says it's easier that. Oh no, the Shelby Forthright says it's easier to just stay in space and rather than clean up this mess. It's just easier this way.
Yeah.
And Otto says this way humanity will survive. He goes, I don't want to survive. I want to live.
I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
And
line.
Yeah.
That after that, like you can't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it eventually steers the ship back to Earth and back to creating life where there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And things begin to flourish again because that curiosity has spread up, and it's not just like, oh, curiosity, oh, what's this, what's that? It's appreciation for life.
Yeah.
And the things
Yeah.
that God has made and,
Yeah.
and things that are beautiful.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Jason, because you were just saying a moment ago, I hope I've done that for people, right? That you've done that for people.
I'm sure I have.
And you've done it, at least for me, but I think for all of us at this table. But one example I'll give you here is like, so this is creating a narrative right here. So I've loved ducks. Like I've always loved ducks. I've been fascinated by them, right? I don't know why. I've just always been drawn to them.
They're cool.
So
That's why.
yeah, I've always loved ducks, and I'm grateful that I've wanted ducks, and now I have ducks, right? But it's interesting because I've never been a fan of any other type of bird. I've just never really thought. So I shared the story of
think I know
already
where
on
you're
the
going.
podcast of you bringing the bird. But here's the thing that's interesting is I think sometimes autopilot is not just a big picture thing. It's also with the small things as well. So for example, if I have made up in my mind, like I just love ducks and I'm not really a fan of other types of birds, that's like an autopilot thing because I'm just kind of like, well, this is who I am. And that's that.
Mhm.
And so I'm not really like going to go look at birds or research birds or as I just don't care. It's not who I am. It's not part of my identity, so to speak. Now you come along into my life and you do things like, let's play this game called Wingspan, which I never in my life would have had an interest in playing Wingspan. I mean, I didn't even see a duck the entire time we were playing the game. So
There's ducks.
I know, but I never got a duck, so I don't care. But here's the thing. Your love and passion got me curious for it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, okay, like Jason really likes this game and I like Jason and, you know, Jason knows his stuff about birds. And so we played Wingspan at the retreat last year.
Yeah, and Nick won.
And Nick won, ironically. He wasn't even trying, but
The
he
best
won.
one.
That's actually
Don't ask me how.
I did.
But so I'm playing Wingspan and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like I like learning about the birds and the way you were talking about them and stuff. And so I was like, you know, I never would have played that game. But then it gets deeper than that because then a couple months later, we go to the theater and we see Boy and the Heron and you're getting like all
Gushy about it.
gushy about all the birds on the screen. And you're just like, yeah, they did that bird right. And he's just sitting next to Jason was awesome during that.
Yeah, just listen.
Because he was just,
They got the red Farron correct. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
They did the
parakeets were the best part.
Yeah.
That made me a little scared of them. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, good job on this movie to make you a little nervous around parakeets. That's
And so a couple weeks after I saw the movie, I texted you guys a picture of a pelican I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I noticed that I was really looking at the pelican, like really looking at it in a way I never had before.
Yeah.
And the way that you've got me curious about things has moved me from like, oh, I just like ducks and I'm not really interested in other birds to now I have chickens to now I take the time to understand birds to playing Wingspan. And it's like actually opened up something within me. And yes, obviously it's like a small piece. It's not as big as in your identity, right? But you've opened up something within me to where I was a person who was just like, oh, I'm not really a fan of birds to now like, oh, birds are so interesting and fascinating. And now I'm curious about them.
when you break it down there, it's art and engineering given form. Like that's what I see in them. Like awesome.
Yeah.
Chickens are cool too.
And so being able to see that beauty in those things, like that's something you helped me do.
Yeah, you're the only other person that I know that really appreciates animals. Like I appreciate animals.
I know.
And you
Yeah.
appreciate
Big
them
respect.
way more than I did, to be honest. But it is comforting to know that because it's like I love nature. I want to be a park ranger.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be a park ranger. Eventually.
Fun fact.
But it's when I look at you, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I want to be, just because of just the beauty that's out there. And it's not just confined to it would be an 8 to 9, but it's not just 8 to 9 in a little area and things like that. But it's, I'm out in the world. I'm out with God's creation.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Yeah, man. I love that.
Big up.
Well, I'll just
Big up.
finish it off.
Yeah.
I need to touch dirt more. That is like
That's
the
perfect.
signature phrase that has been built in my head around you is I need to go touch dirt. And it's really more profound than, it's really funny, but it's also really profound.
Yeah.
And you can go a long time on autopilot not touching dirt.
Yeah.
And you shake someone's hand and you realize like you're not living or that person is living. So that's just really cool.
Yeah, I think all of us here on this podcast, we all really do have like something that we connect with each other on, but something that pushes us a little further. And I think that beautiful push and pull and connection of life, I think that's what it's all about. And so I'm glad that we have that with each other.
We need to make a shirt that says "Just touch the dirt."
That's going on the list for the shirts,
It's gonna
right?
be the captain's hand with like the dirt on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jason, is there anything else about WALL-E that you wanted to mention in this idea of curiosity,
Let's see.
breaking us free from autopilot, all that before I'm going to tie this whole series in a bow after?
Go to work.
Yeah,
That
just
too.
no, so I guess just an encouragement for you listeners out there and for us to kind of understand and ask yourselves, what is my autopilot? What is the one thing where I've in a lane and this is what I mostly do, but I don't look outside of it.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid of connecting with people and listening to ideas that you don't agree with or completely disagree with for the sake of understanding why they think that way and what they care about and what they're seeing as beautiful. And I feel like that's what connects us as people, is that we're all so different in how we think and feel. And I'll listen to people all the time like, I would have never thought of it that way. That's how you see the world? I can't even understand that. But closing my eyes to that does not help me. And I get jaded, I get irritable. I only care about like just getting to where I need to go when I do not step off that little lighted line that even that I've set for myself.
Yeah.
You know, and just question. If you stop questioning things, you're not growing anymore and you're not learning. Yeah. If you stop getting interested in things that aren't your autopilot, your directive, you're not going to grow and you're not going to develop outwards. And you're not going to be able to appreciate yourself and know what you're capable of. Like the secretary robot that just clicks all the buttons and while he waves at him once and he's like, I know I can do that. And then when he leaves, he's just completely waving the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've got.
It's beautiful. So this is the end of our extended like origin story, right? Because, in relaunching this podcast, we really wanted to be able to get a better sense of who each of us are moving forward, right? And learning and discovering things about each other in the process. And obviously for all of you out there listening as well to do that. And now one of my strengths is being able to really find connections between things that might not seem like they connect. So I was thinking about WALL-E and Avengers Age of Ultron and Stranger Than Paradise and Star Wars, the original trilogy. And I'm trying to think, well, there's something about these movies that are all connected because all the four of us are connected. And if they're meaningful to us, right? So what is that connection? And I started to realize it, and it really helps me better understand like what we have together. So curiosity is what really sparks any adventure, any call that we have in our life, that curiosity and wonder. If you're going to move forward, you need to have that. That's the launching point, right? And so with WALL-E and everything there, we see how WALL-E is breaking humanity out of that cycle so that they can have that curiosity and that wonder. And I mean, we see also it's interesting because that's in Stranger Than Paradise. That's what they need to get shaken out of as well, is they need to have that curiosity and wonder about what it's like to connect with each other. And we've talked a lot about connection between WALL-E and Stranger Than Paradise, right? Which is interesting. But at the heart, in the middle of those two things is, of course, trauma. You see, the earth creation had undergone trauma. and WALL-E. And in Stranger Than Paradise, we're in a world of just black and white existence. We're in a world where we're not dealing with our problems. We're not talking about those things. We're just existing. And in Age of Ultron, we see how that trauma can really cloud our vision. But in all three of those films, it really is it's lonely people who are so disconnected. They're disconnected from themselves, one another, their sense of purpose, the world around them. And all of them are on some sort of journey where they're going to have to work through it. And they're going to have to be able to move forward. And so all of these things, how curiosity sparks our adventure, undergoing trauma and experiences that lead to a death, a dying of something in our lives, right? There's something that has to die in order for the journey to move forward. And then we're reborn through this sense of connection. Now, all of those things together help us to live a meaningful story. And in all these stories, and this is where Star Wars comes in here, Star Wars is the story of the path of how does meaning in my story grow and develop over time. Luke's journey from the three films is about trying to discover that meaning and purpose, and each film explores it in a different way. And so when we have all these pieces together, we're able to live our stories more meaningfully. And we're no longer on autopilot. We're no longer stuck in our trauma, and we're no longer disconnected. We are living meaningfully out of our origin stories. And that's what I got.
That's good.
So if you feel stuck on autopilot, if you feel like your life is just this monotonous thing and you can't break out of it, sometimes we need another person to come alongside. And as a guide with all things narrative, that's what I try to help you do. Your story is try to help you to see what's possible and to be able to, through my curiosity about who you are and what your story is, see what kind of story you're living and what kind of story is possible for you. So through our coaching, whether it's our personal development in our Live a Meaningful Story program, or if you just want to get a better sense of what your story is and how to communicate it, whether it's through writing or through speaking, then check out our Storytelling for Speakers workshop and coaching. And as always, you can find these things in our show notes, allthingsnarrative.com, and let's break you out of autopilot. Let's not let that run your life, and let's see how through curiosity and wonder, we can live a better story. So thank you guys so much, and join us next month for another amazing set of episodes. You guys are really special.
Thanks,
and it's
Jason.
been a beautiful time learning your origin stories.
Yeah, thank you,
and now we go forward from here. Thank you for listening to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, produced by All Things Narrative. If you'd like to learn more about our coaching, workshops, events, please check out allthingsnarrative.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at All Things Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and tune in next time as we continue exploring the stories we love and the stories we live. Take care.